On paper, Marcus was living the exact version of the American dream that every finance textbook promises. He was 36 years old, working as a senior software architect for a mid-sized tech firm in Austin, Texas, and taking home a base salary of $210,000 a year. If you looked at his life from the outside, you would have seen a success story. He drove a sleek German luxury SUV, lived in a pristine 4-bedroom home in a gated suburban neighborhood, wore tailored shirts to client dinners, and took his family on annual ski trips to Colorado. Yet on a rainy Tuesday morning in late October, Marcus sat at his kitchen island with his head in his hands, staring at a banking notification on his phone. His primary checking account had an available balance of $14.22. His mortgage payment was due in 5 days, his minimum payments across 4 separate credit cards were overdue, and he had exactly $0 in his savings account. He was not gambling. He was not investing in obscure meme coins or trading high-risk stock options in the middle of the night. He did not have an expensive addiction or a secret second life. Marcus was completely undeniably broke, and the most terrifying part was that he had followed every conventional piece of financial advice given to high-earning professionals in America to understand how someone making over $17,000 a month ends up flat broke. You have to rewind 7 years. At 29, Marcus was earning $65,000 a year as a junior engineer. He lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment, drove an 8-year-old reliable Japanese sedan with faded paint, and cooked most of his meals at home. Back then, he watched every dollar. He had 3 months of living expenses tucked away in an emergency fund, and whenever he got a small bonus, he put half of it directly into his retirement account. He felt in control of his money because the boundaries were clear and obvious. If he spent too much, he felt the pain immediately. Then the big promotion started rolling in. First came a jump to $95,000. Then a jump to $140,000 when he switched companies, and finally the big promotion to $210,000. Along with the salary came a subtle psychological shift that catches nearly every high-income earner off guard. The voice in his head began saying the 5 most dangerous words in personal finance. I can easily afford this. The lifestyle creep did not happen overnight. It came in quiet, logical increments that made complete sense in the moment. When Marcus was making $65,000, spending $70 on dinner felt like a special occasion. At $210,000, spending $250 on dinner with drinks seemed completely normal for someone in his tax bracket. The old sedan had 200,000 miles on the odometer, so replacing it made sense. But instead of buying another practical commuter car, he leased an $85,000 luxury SUV. His monthly payment became $980. Plus another $240 a month for full coverage premium insurance. He justified the cost instantly. He worked 60 hours a week, spent hours stuck in traffic, and deserved to ride in comfort and safety. Next came the housing upgrade. Marcus and his wife decided that their modest suburban starter home was no longer suitable. They wanted to be in a top-rated school district, surrounded by neighbors with similar careers and backgrounds. They purchased an $850,000 home with only 5% down, locking themselves into a monthly mortgage payment of nearly $5,400, including property taxes, private mortgage insurance, and homeowners association fees. Marcus did the math in his head on a napkin. $5,400 was roughly a third of his monthly gross income. The internet told him that spending 30% of your income on housing was perfectly acceptable. What the internet and traditional rules of thumb failed to warn him about was the hidden, secondary cost of a bigger life. A large house in an upscale neighborhood comes with invisible financial gravity. The existing furniture from their old home looked tiny, worn out, and out of place in the high-ceiling living room, leading to $15,000 in new living room and bedroom furniture, financed on a 0% interest promotion over 18 months. The neighborhood association required professional lawn care, which added another $250 a month. The utility bills for heating and cooling a larger square footage jumped from $180 a month to $520 a month. The property taxes increased every single year as home values climbed, quietly adding hundreds of dollars to their escrow payments. Marcus was now earning nearly 3 times what he made in his 20s, but his fixed, non-negotiable monthly expenses had exploded. Before he bought a single grocery item, put a gallon of gas in his car, or paid for a streaming subscription, his fixed baseline overhead was sitting at $11,200 every single month. After federal income taxes, state deductions, Social Security, Medicare, and standard health insurance premiums for his family, his actual take-home pay was roughly $12,600 a month. That left Marcus with approximately $1,400 of discretionary income per month to cover groceries, gas, clothing, family entertainment, dining out, home repairs, and savings. $1,400 sounds like plenty of breathing room to someone making $50,000 a year with low fixed expenses. But for a family living inside an expensive ecosystem, $1,400 vanishes in an instant. A single weekend trip to visit family costs $600 in airfare and rental cars. A routine service visit for the luxury SUV costs $750 for specialized brake pads and synthetic oil. When his daughter needed braces, the orthodontist required a $500 down payment, followed by $200 a month. Whenever Marcus ran short toward the end of the month, he did not panic. Why would he panic? He was an elite software architect making $210,000 a year. He simply pulled out a premium rewards credit card to bridge the gap. He told himself he would pay the balance off in full with his annual performance bonus in February. This is where the illusion of high income becomes truly dangerous. Marcus stopped treating his monthly cash flow as a rigid boundary and started treating his future income as a safety net. He was spending money he had not yet earned to maintain a lifestyle he could not actually support on his baseline take-home pay. By the end of the second year at his top salary, Marcus had accumulated $22,000 in credit card debt across 2 cards. His annual bonus arrived, totaling $25,000 before taxes. But after the IRS took its 40% cut on supplemental wages, Marcus was left with only $15,000. He put every single penny of that bonus toward his credit cards, but it wasn't enough to wipe out the balance. For the first time in his life, he carried a rolling balance into the new year, incurring a 24% interest rate on the remaining $7,000. The real trap snapped shut in year 3. The tech sector began cooling down, and his company announced a company-wide freeze on salary adjustments and eliminated annual performance bonuses to protect their operating margins. Marcus received the news via an all-hands video call on a Thursday afternoon. While his coworkers were frustrated about missing out on extra perks, Marcus felt a physical jolt of panic in his chest. His entire financial system was engineered on the assumption that a $25,000 bonus was guaranteed every single February. Without that lump sum, his baseline expenses exceeded his annual take-home pay by almost $15,000 a year. He could no longer pay down the credit cards. Instead, the minimum payments began eating deeper into his monthly cash flow. Minimum payments that started at $200 a month climbed to $600, then $800, then $1,200 a month as the balances compounded with interest. To keep up with the mortgage and car payments, he opened a 3rd credit card with a promotional balance transfer rate, shuffling debt from one account to another just to keep the minimum payments manageable. Every single day became a high-wire balancing act. Marcus spent his lunch breaks logging into multiple banking portals, moving $50 from one checking account to cover an automatic debit on another, checking pending transactions, and praying that the grocery store payment would clear before his paycheck landed on Friday. He looked like an executive during morning meetings, presenting architectural diagrams and leading technical teams, while secretly calculating whether he had enough credit limit left on his card to put gas in the SUV to drive home. The breaking point arrived on that rainy Tuesday in October. A water pipe inside the upstairs bathroom developed a hairline fracture, slowly leaking water behind the drywall before bursting completely while the family was asleep. By morning, water had ruined the bathroom flooring, soaked through the subfloor, and collapsed a section of the downstairs kitchen ceiling. Marcus called a local restoration company and his homeowner's insurance provider. The insurance policy covered the bulk of the structural rebuild, but his policy deductible was $5,000, payable immediately to start the emergency remediation work. Marcus did not have $5,000. He did not even have $500. Every single credit card was maxed out to the absolute limit. His 401k had a strict policy against non-hardship loans, and because his debt-to-income ratio had skyrocketed over the previous 2 years, his bank instantly denied his application for an unsecured personal loan. Standing in his water-damaged kitchen, looking at a hole in the ceiling and an account balance of $14, the reality hit him with crushing clarity. He had spent 7 years building a fortress of outward success that was structurally hollow on the inside. If he lost his job tomorrow, he would not last 30 days before defaulting on every asset he owned. He was making top 5% income in the United States, yet he had less financial stability than he did when he was 22 years old, making $12 an hour as an intern. The problem was never the size of Marcus's salary. The problem was the mathematical misunderstanding of what wealth actually is. Marcus believed that wealth was measured by cash flow in, things owned, and the quality of his daily lifestyle. In reality, wealth is not what you spend. Wealth is the margin between what you earn and what you consume. Wealth is the silence of zero debt, the freedom of low fixed expenses, and the cushion of liquidity that lets you absorb life's unexpected disasters without breaking a sweat. When people make more money, they rarely increase their financial margin. Instead, they trade low-stress simplicity for high-stress luxury. They trade a $800 apartment rent for a $5,000 mortgage. They trade a 5-year-old sedan for an expensive lease with specialized maintenance. They trade a home-cooked meal for $80 takeout deliveries on busy weeknights. Every single time their income climbs one step up the ladder, they deliberately push their expenses 2 steps higher, convincing themselves that their high salary will protect them from basic arithmetic. Marcus was forced to make the hardest decision of his adult life. He realized that trying to out-earn his bad financial structure was mathematically impossible. He sat down with his wife, laid every single credit card statement, bank notification, and utility bill on the table, and spoke the truth out loud for the first time. They were living completely beyond their means, and the charade had to end immediately. Over the next 6 months, they executed an aggressive, radical financial restructuring. They listed the luxury SUV on a private sale platform, took a small loss to get out of the lease commitment, and bought a used, reliable hatchback with cash pulled from selling unnecessary household items and electronics. That single move eliminated over $1,200 a month in payments and premium insurance costs. They cut every subscription, canceled the expensive private lawn care service, stopped dining out at high-end restaurants, and committed to a strict, line-by-line, zero-based budget where every single dollar was assigned a job before the month began. Marcus stopped hiding behind the prestige of his job title. He worked overtime, took on freelance consulting projects on weekend mornings, and directed every spare dollar toward paying off the high-interest credit card balances one by one. It took 18 months of intense discipline, uncomfortable sacrifices, and ego-crushing lifestyle downgrades to fully dig out of the hole. When the final credit card balance reached zero, Marcus did not celebrate with an expensive dinner or a weekend vacation. Instead, he took the money that used to go toward debt minimums and began funding a true, liquid emergency fund in a high-yield savings account. 2 years after that devastating morning in his kitchen, Marcus had built a 6-month cash cushion of $50,000 sitting safely in the bank. His income had not changed significantly, but his life was unrecognizable. He slept peacefully through the night. He no longer dreaded checking his banking app. When his car needed new tires or the water heater made a strange noise, his heart rate stayed completely flat because he had the cash sitting right there to pay for it, without asking permission from a credit card company. The biggest mistake high-income earners make is believing that a large shovel guarantees a large pile of dirt. If your shovel has a giant hole in the bottom, it does not matter how big it is. You will always end up with empty hands. Making $210,000 a year only gives you the opportunity to build wealth. What you keep, what you protect, and how low you keep your baseline overhead determines whether you actually achieve financial freedom or simply become an extraordinarily well-paid prisoner of your own lifestyle. True financial peace does not come from looking rich to your neighbors, driving a status symbol through your neighborhood, or carrying an impressive job title. True financial peace comes from living far below your means, respecting the math of compounding interest, and knowing that no matter what economic storm rolls in, your family's foundation is built on solid ground.